Chocolate? Chocolate! Chocolate!
Hello everybody, Chocolate Guy here, and welcome back to another Hey Arnold episode review. In this video, we're going to talk about one of my favorite Season 1 episodes, that being Helga's Makeover. This is an episode I've always wanted to talk about more. I mentioned it in my Season 1 list, as it made the honorable mentions, but I obviously wasn't able to say a ton there. I just have so many thoughts on why this episode is great and how it deals with some complex topics, including someone struggling with their own image, and the beauty standards / stereotypes some young girls feel pressured to take part in. And it tackles both these topics in a very interesting way, while still being a very funny episode. But I also want to explain more in depth why this still isn't enough for it to land in my top 5 of the season. So, let's just get right into the review so I can elaborate. I love the setup to this episode a lot, and how the episode portrays Helga. Helga has been a fun and interesting character up until this point, but this is the first episode that really shows that she is a great character, and probably the best of the show. Like Arnold, she can adapt around most stories to make them interesting, but she is a much more defined character than he is. This episode goes through great lengths to show that Helga is a more rough personality than the girls around her, and isn't interested in the same things they are, and presenting herself in a similar way like they do. She is very comfortable with her own image and doesn't care what other people think about her, which is shown from her not wanting to go to Rhonda's sleepover and her conversation with Phoebe after, which does a good job at showing off her character and opinions on the party and her distaste for things generally considered, at least by kids, to be more girly. But as the episode goes on, through her interactions with the boys, and their taunts about her not being invited to the party because she's not quote-unquote girl enough, along with comments made towards her, and hearing the way the other girls talk about her while eavesdropping on the sleepover, she becomes more insecure about herself. She becomes nervous about the way she presents herself visually and through her actions, and how people view her based on this. Because even though she at least was confident with her image, she still views the idea of being a woman as completely attached to femininity and stereotypical girly interests like makeup and beauty, which many kids also believe. So she tries to change her image. The setup is great because it does make you very interested in Helga as a character and makes her very dynamic and multi-layered, because as the episode goes on, her views on her own image and her views on what a girl should be and how a girl should act are different, which makes her a complex character and this story very interesting, because you're curious to see exactly how Helga is going to go about these conflicting feelings, and it makes you hope that she'll take something good away from the experience and change her mind on some things, making this an engaging watch. And this gets into the main conflict of the episode, with Helga figuring out how she wants to change her image and trying to act differently to fit in at this party. What I love about this story is that it can be really funny. There's a lot of great jokes setting up Helga deciding to do this, and just how weird and awkward the entire situation is. Like her checking out the magazines at the supermarket, and some of the other little conversations she had with the other girls throughout the episode. But the story can also be very insightful, while telling its story in a way that anyone can understand, even if you can't relate, while not dumbing down any of the challenging topics this episode covers, like how the idea of one's image specifically affects children, especially in certain situations. The episode also shows off, through Helga's story, the stereotypical idea to a lot of young girls at this age about how you need to act to be considered a girl, which puts pressure on a lot of young girls to act in this certain way, and even boys to reinforce it. Which is shown off in Helga's story, because the boys make her think more and more in this way after her interactions with them. I will say, I'm a little out of my depth talking about these topics, but I think this episode handles all of them extremely well. This is actually a really uncomfortable episode to watch at points. But this is great because it really shows how negative this whole situation is for Helga and makes her realization at the end and what she tells the other girls and the message behind it all more satisfying and powerful. It's really uncomfortable to see her do something she clearly doesn't want to do, like change her entire image into something it's not, just to fit in with the other girls and look older and more pretty, especially the makeover scene. But the conversations she has with the other girls, while they can be goofy and funny, are also really uncomfortable because you can just tell this isn't who Helga is, and not only does she not like what she is doing, but on a moral level, she doesn't believe in it. But her fear of being perceived as too boy-like to the other girls and her not fitting in makes her go through with this plan. This whole sequence is so great because it really shows the worst aspects of the themes I mentioned and how it really affects young girls like Helga, and we really get to see Helga's perspective on it throughout the entire episode. And it's just a great one because Helga is such an interesting character to center this plot around, especially with that ending. After having a great conversation with Phoebe and things getting taken a little bit too far for Helga's liking, she calls out the stupidity of some of the things her and the girls are doing, like focusing on beauty, femininity, and looking older to such an extreme extent, and that they shouldn't worry about falling into these standards or stereotypes because that's frankly kind of silly because they're children. And this is such a great way to end the episode because not only does it send a really positive message that kids today can even take something away from, proving that this episode has aged remarkably well, but it also doesn't shame the other girls for being interested in stereotypically girly things, like beauty, fashion, or makeup. Because there really isn't anything wrong with that, and it seems to make the rest of the girls really happy. But especially at 9 years old, you shouldn't take it to an extreme, or pressure others into liking or acting in a similar way. It's also not a bad thing to act more quote-unquote or stereotypically girly either, but you also shouldn't shame other people for not acting the same way. On top of that, the episode also shows that those things and your interests don't define what makes you a girl or not. As long as you identify as a girl, you can act any way you want to and shouldn't feel pressured to act in a particular way or be interested in certain things, which is a great lesson for young kids to learn. It's just a really good message, and it's just a great way to end the episode. With all the talk of Helga's story though, and how great that is, I haven't mentioned the boys' subplot, and it's fine. I do like it and think it's very fun while breaking up the main story that deals with some heavy stuff with something that's much more lighthearted. You also get to see a fun divide in just how different the boys and the girls in the show are, especially at the end after Helga's realization. And as I said earlier, the boys also play into Helga's story more directly very well at one point. With all that said, and with just how great I think this episode is, and how it tackles some complex stuff, while being really progressive, especially for a children's show at the time, sending a great message, why did it still not make my top 5 of the season? Well, the biggest reason is the one I said in that video, but remains just as true now. That being, I'm a guy who never had to deal with any of these topics as a kid. I'll be honest, that made this video very hard to write, because even though I love this episode, I felt a little bit out of my depth talking about some of these topics and how the episode handles them very well. But I tried my best, and I hope I did at least a decent job. So while I love this one, it's just never going to connect with me as much as some others, which I enjoy watching more for that reason. The smaller reason this episode didn't make the list, though, is while it tackles a lot of interesting stuff that it handles well, it can be a little underdeveloped in places. It's not a super big issue, which is why I didn't bring it up at any other point in the review, but this episode is set up to Helga feeling insecure, showing off her change, and then the awkwardness of the slumber party, and then her final speech to show a lot of the topics explored in the episode. But I wish we could have still seen more conversations with Helga and others to get into her head a little more, to develop some of these things just a little bit further, and to make this story more interesting overall. But it is still a minor issue, and this is just a very powerful episode that is still very fun and funny. It's impressive for many reasons, and no matter what I say to detract from that, it is still one of the best of Season 1, and a great early showcase of what the show is capable of, and how interesting of a main character Helga can be when given the spotlight even when Arnold isn't there. And this leads to many other great episodes and more development on her in the future. We will talk about some other great Helga episodes that look at her character in an interesting way, but in the next Hey Arnold episode review, we're gonna talk about a much more lighthearted and less talked about episode, that being The List. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe for more content similar to this in the future. Comment down below on what you thought of the review and what your own thoughts on Helga's makeover are. Before I end the video, I have an announcement to make. Moving forward, I'm not going to post individual episode reviews super often or back-to-back anymore. I tried doing that with Hey Arnold Season 1, but realized I don't love the video making process for these videos, doing them super often, as they take longer to make than is worth it for the shorter runtime, even the 7 and 8 minute ones. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy making them, and moving forward, am gonna keep producing them, including some more Hey Arnold Season 1 episode reviews from the list I made, though less than I promised because I don't have as much to say on some random ones I picked out, but I will talk about some others, including ones from Seasons 2 and 3 as well. And yes, the list will still be my next Hey Arnold episode review, but I will only post 2 individual reviews a month, and for the upcoming months, I will finish the Season 1 episodes I want to review, and expand these individual episode reviews to episodes from shows I haven't covered, including this month. What episode am I gonna cover next, and from what show? Well, I'll keep it a mystery for now, but it's gonna be pretty interesting. So I hope you're looking forward to that. This will also allow me to post one bigger video month, whether that be a list or some other thing. In April, that will be a video of me talking about the other worst episodes of Hey Arnold Season 1, in a different format, and if that works out, I will talk about the worst episodes of 2 and 3 in that style as well. In May, I will finally release my Avatar Season 3 list, and in June, I'll be posting something related to classic Nicktoons. But that's all I'll say for now. So, there's some cool stuff coming up, and I'm excited to try this new scheduling of videos over the next couple months. And lastly, thank you guys so much for the growth on my channel recently. I really appreciate everybody's support and hope to deliver on great content to keep that subscriber number growing. But with all that said, until next time, this is Chocolate Guy, signing off.